Juxtaposition, people. Juxtaposition. A very important word. And it's an important word for an important reason, because it reveals reality to us. It shows us exactly where we're going wrong, how we're being misled, how we are straining at a gnat in order that we swallow a camel. Okay? That's what distractions are for, in order that we all chase after gnats and we don't notice the camel that's going to kill us all. Now, COVID, I've never said that COVID isn't a real virus. I have stated that they are not testing specifically for COVID-19. That, I believe by now, is a fact. They're testing for at most SARS, but commonly any coronavirus. Okay? If you're carrying what the general gist of it is, because they haven't got a test to specifically identify COVID-19, because they have not isolated the virus yet. No matter how many times they say it, and fact checker says, oh, they have, and puts you through to a group of scientists saying, oh yes, we isolated the virus, but they're showing us no virus. And meanwhile, the CDC in America has openly admitted that they do not have an isolated virus. So at most, as I've shown in my recent video, the tests are showing SARS or MERS, but commonly any coronavirus, which includes the common cold and multiple strains of flu. Okay? And because this government has said coronavirus, any evidence of coronavirus, we assume it's COVID-19. That's the way they're playing it. They've not told us that's the way they're playing it, but that's what they've told themselves, and they've justified it because apparently it's a deadly pandemic that was going to kill hundreds of thousands of people. Okay? Now we know it's not a deadly pandemic. It's no more or less of a risk than the average flu season. And actually with COVID, it seems it's less of a risk actually to children and people under the age of 60 and, you know, healthy people. So, you know, that's the reality of what's going on. Okay, I'll leave you a couple of links. You want to query me, I'll leave you links with people far more professional than me who have gathered far more studies. You can check them. You can go and call them a conspiracy theorist or a liar or somebody sharing fake news. Okay? But I'm going to show you the juxtaposition now, because this is what is happening in Britain. This guy is sat on a train. He said he's medically exempt, but no, that isn't enough. Okay? He gets manhandled by the police officer. All the police come in. Toward the end of this video, he's literally stripped half naked. He's left with just his pants on. And then he's escorted off the train. Right. This is happening in Britain. Now, the man, apparently there's been some sort of reports that he was coughing and sneezing on people. Well, you know, I haven't seen any evidence of that. That is hearsay. We have to follow the evidence of our eyes, and we know that it's not just happening here. We've seen it happening all over Britain. Elderly people being arrested for taking a walk in the countryside. People being arrested for sitting on a bench. People all over Britain being stopped and harassed because they're not wearing a mask. One woman told by police she had to cover her t-shirt up because it said F Boris on it. And on strength of what? On strength of what suspicion is this man being kicked off the train? We've got no evidence at all that the man's got COVID-19. No evidence at all that he's a risk to anybody. He was sat on his own, social distanced. Why has this police officer, whose own mask has slipped, with other police officers with no mask, or manhandling him, traumatising him, lowering his immunity when he's already said he's got underlying health conditions, so that makes him even more at risk. all over the suspicion that he might be a public health risk. Apparently, that warrants this level of action. Apparently, it warrants people phoning the police because somebody's broken lockdown rules and they've invited somebody into their home. Right? That's the mentality. That's the mentality. You know, that's a serious crime. Serious crime. Serious. There's evidence that this man is a risk because he's not wearing a mask. Okay? Well, look, I'm going to show you some evidence here now of a rigged postal vote. Okay? A rigged postal vote. It's all here. It doubled in 2019. Who hired IDOCs? Who hired IDOCs? Why did Cabinet Office rush through procurement of controversial electoral services company IDOCs just before the general election? IDOCs, with direct connections to the Tories, as is explained in this article. This postal vote is what gave the Tories their alleged landslide win. It's what gave them full control of Parliament. It's what's given them power to take Britain out of the EU with no deal. Now, I don't care which way you voted, whether you voted Brexit or to stay in the EU. But at the end of the day, no sane populace votes to punish itself. Okay? No sane populace votes to put millions of lives at risk, scrap their human rights and hand sovereignty over, not to themselves, no, but to a bunch of rich people who then use their sovereignty to remove our democracy, remove our rights, sweep away all the social progress that was made after World War II on the strength of our people, the British people, our ancestors, who gave their lives for future generations, and turn Britain into a tax haven. Because that is what they plan to do. They plan to turn Britain into a tax haven through a shock and awe strategy. Here you go. Brexit and the future of tax havens. This was January 23rd, 2019. You've not been paying attention, people. Right? This was before Johnson got in. Singapore on the Thames is what they're on with. Okay? It's all here. It's all here. Singapore on the Thames. What Singapore on the Thames visionaries appear to have in mind can be summed up as a commitment to sweeping tax cuts for corporations and mobile rich people, tax wars as a fiscal weapon, tax measures as accelerated capital allowances to attract mobile investments, comprehensive deregulation, removal of social and environmental protections, weak or non-existent compliance with international and anti-money laundering measures, retaining golden visa arrangements to provide residence rights of wealthy non-British citizens, increasing exposure to oligarchs and corrupt illicit financial flows. Steadily, stealthily, the British tax system and border economy has been reconfigured since the 1950s to serve the interests of a class of unaccountable, untouchable, offshore diving, super-rich swathes of British political class are deeply embedded in offshore secrecy. That same offshore secrecy is about to take Britain. To take Britain over, okay? This raises questions about what senior politicians in London mean when they talk about Singapore on the Thames. Mr Javid, a serious contender to replace Theresa May, which actually was Boris, he ended up being Chancellor of the Exchequer. He'd worked as a banker in Singapore, has spoken about using tax cuts and deregulation as part of a shock and awe strategy to transform the post-Brexit UK economy. Shock and awe strategy. Well, shall I tell you what the shock and awe is going to be? It's going to be to the people of Britain when you're queuing up for your very expensive rations, when you've got martial law, police and military walking around your streets with guns, when you're not allowed to protest, when all of a sudden they're announcing, oh, COVID-19 numbers are on the rise again, you all better get back into house arrest. You stay in your homes, you starve in your homes. If you get out on the street, you're going to have guns. As soon as we are out of the EU and we have no rights and not a hope in hell, they're going to be there with the guns pointing at us. And we have every reason to believe that, because the government has stated, and again, the government has stated their intent, okay? They planned for martial law. We've already witnessed it, haven't we? Operation Yellowhammer. Martial law. You've got no chance of doing anything once they get martial law established. It's, you know, we're talking crime and criminals here. Anybody still going, any average British citizen who's still talking about, no, Brexit means Brexit, yeah, sovereignty for us, I'll tell you now, you're lying to yourself, you're believing in a pack of lies, because no, sovereignty is not for us. Sovereignty is to the is being taken away from us and given back to the Crown, who is now taking over Britain as yet another of its Crown-controlled, owned tax haven territories. This is deadly serious. Now, I'm explaining the juxtaposition here, that if people can be, you know, turfed off a train, pepper sprayed, stripped half naked, on the mere suspicion that he might be a health risk, a public health risk, okay? There is enough evidence here to arrest this government immediately, to demand their arrest and investigation, because that is what lawful suspicion is about. We have the evidence. We know that they have direct connections to IDOCs. That the Tories had. Look, Conservative Cabinet Minister Peter Lilly has been given a lucrative contract by the Cabinet Office without competitive tendering to revamp the management of electoral register in extraordinary circumstances. But not just that, IDOCs totally control the postal vote. They managed it, they received it, they counted it. Dominic Raab gave the results of it the day before the general election, when by law that postal vote is not even supposed to be looked at until after 10:30 on the day of the GE. We all saw Laura Kussenberg preparing the British public for the actually ridiculous defeat, landslide defeat against Jeremy Corbyn, which was ridiculous, because never in the history of this country since Attlee have there been, has one contender for Prime Minister been so popular, attracted so many crowds, and you're telling me he lost by a landslide? Of course it doesn't make sense, because it was rigged. All these people queuing up, like unprecedented numbers of people voting. And yet the postal vote doubled as well. The postal vote doubled. And yet, apparently, you look at the figures, oh, well, you know, it wasn't really that many more people voted than any other time physically. But, oh, by post, we all doubled. The postal vote doubled. Was that because of COVID? No, because COVID wasn't there. It wasn't around, was it? According to the media and the government, COVID suddenly appeared in January. This itself says it all. Look, 2015, even 2017, and look, 2019. Come on, people. Right, if this can happen to British citizens, and you know, it won't matter whether you voted Brexit or not. And all you people who were voting against immigration, oh yeah, because you've no EU and immigration, well, this government's going to bring 3 million people in from Hong Kong. 3 million people. And what are they going to be bringing 3 million people from Hong Kong for? Who are they going to be bringing in? Well, I'll tell you now, it'll be the people who are working in the financial system of Hong Kong. People who work at money laundering, criminal bank HSBC. People working in finance in Hong Kong will all be coming to Britain, okay? Because there's 1,000 EU financial firms plan to open offices after Brexit in Britain. They've already built the offices. They're all standing empty, aren't they, in every city centre, waiting for these EU financial firms. Are they going to be employing British people? No, only to clean the offices and clean the windows. You know, and I'm talking about British people of every faith, every ethnicity. No, they'll be employing the 3 million people that they're bringing in from Hong Kong. Because they're not going to spend money training up the British workforce, are they? They haven't got enough people actually to man 1,000 EU financial firms. And in fact, every single corporation that opens up in Britain, the government has legislated for them to bring in as many workers as they like from their own countries. So, you know, Brexit, I'm sorry, it is not what it was meant to be. And that is why I didn't vote for it. Because we are not the Britain that we were when we entered it. And we are leaving with nothing. We are having the kind of Brexit that a country gets a criminal nation gets when it gets kicked out of the EU. Basically, you're left with nothing. We've got one trade deal, people. We have one trade deal. Who do we have a trade deal with? We have one trade deal with Israel. Okay. We have one trade deal with Israel. You know, I've written this and these are all the links. All the links are here. I have to go up to the top. But, you know, I'll leave you both links. But this link is in the thing. In depth. Concerns about Britain's trade deal with US. We have no deal with America. None whatsoever. So we're going to be dependent on a country like Israel with its terrible human rights record. Look how they treat their neighbours, right? Do you think they're going to be treating Britain any better? What kind of caveats are going to be included with this trade deal now with Israel when Britain's desperate? Oh, anybody saying anything against Zionism is going to be immediately arrested and incarcerated. Anybody standing up for Palestine, they're going to be identified as a terrorist threat. I tell you, things are seriously bad and dangerous. And not enough people are aware of it. Instead, everybody's running around scared of the latest flu virus that, you know, all the evidence tells us has been manipulated in a lab and released from a lab. And actually, it is nothing like as deadly as they said. I think, what is it now they're saying? It's a 1 in a million chance that you're going to die from COVID-19. We're not dealing with a pandemic. We're dealing with a psyop, a global. It is a global corporate coup, and it is taking hold in Britain. It's taking hold in America, two of the most powerful nations on this planet, and then it'll start get its teeth into Europe. And all these people, they're coming over here. The worst business people coming over here to Britain. What for? To avoid taxes. To thieve off the European nations that they've come from. 1,000 EU financial firms. And the offices, they're already standing empty, aren't they? In every single city. That's the juxtaposition, people. That's the juxtaposition. Now, you take some time today to read this article. To check through the links here, okay? If you've got time, read this document. Read this document. It's questions about Brexit and COVID. And all the links of evidence are here. All the links, Part H, references, that's it. You can check them. You can have this up on a separate tab and you can check every link as it comes up in the document. And look how many links. That's why I've done it as a separate document. There's over 200 links here. Links of evidence, facts about what is going to happen. Price hikes. NHS being privatised. Government stocking up on body bags. Martial law. Look, there you go. Government planning for martial law. Under emergency no deal Brexit preparations. Right? This isn't a joke. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is, look, you see them queues of people? That's going to be us queuing up for our very expensive rations. Are you prepared for your food prices to go up 4 times? Can you stock up enough food for the next 5 years? I am seriously alarmed and I am raising the alarm. And I'm even more alarmed now because, look people, I was sharing this on my Facebook. Ask questions. If people can be arrested and charged on unevidenced suspicion they're a public health risk, there's more than enough evidence here to arrest the cabal. Right? Posted on my Facebook, was sharing in groups. I'd shared in a few groups and suddenly a message came up on Facebook and says I am temporarily restricted. Okay, so look, I'll show you. I'll try sharing it in there. Oh, it's actually shared for some reason. Before it said I was temporarily restricted and I had posted that on my Twitter and now suddenly the restriction's been lifted. Oh dear, what games they play, what games they play. What games they play. You know. Let's see if it'll do again. Yeah, for some reason now it's sharing. There you go. But they did put a warning up saying that I am restricted and my account has been restricted. And then I've just done a Twitter post explaining that. I made a big fuss about it because I've just said in multiple groups my account is restricted in middle of sharing. We are under rule of absolute tyranny. It's a coup. Stand up. Oh, and suddenly FP's obviously lifted the restriction. Talk about messing about with people. Just crazy. But there you go. You see, it works to call them out immediately, you know, because they're never going to intimidate me. They're never ever going to shut me up or intimidate me into silence through fear. You know, I grew up in a house, I survived a childhood literally being terrorised in my own home and abused in every way imaginable, including sexually, by a nutter father who was a tyrant. I know what tyranny's like. I know what it's like to have no food, to have to go to school with holes in your shoes and, you know, not even have a PE kit or a swimming costume because, you know, daddy spends all the money on his drinking and gambling. And I know what is governing. I know the consciousness that is governing us now. It's the same consciousness. It only cares about itself, its own vain, egotistical, narcissistic ambitions. They're psychopaths. They abuse children. They protect people who abuse children. That is what we are dealing with. And that is who we have handed over to and give them power now. Power to remove our human rights. Do you not think that every single despot leader, right-leaning leader of Europe would love to do the same? Don't you think that what's happening to Britain is just the beginning of what's going to happen to every nation in Europe? As part of the corporate global takeover. These are EU citizens that will be opening up the financial firms in Britain to avoid paying taxes in the EU, to launder money that they can't pass through the EU, but they'll pass it through Britain. And then, you know, on top of that, we've got all the lies and the foreign meddling and the stuff that Cambridge Analytica to do with Brexit in the first place, the attacks against Corbyn, you know, calling him anti-Semitic when the man spent his life defending Jews just because he spoke up on behalf of Palestine. Well, I tell you now what's happened to Jeremy Corbyn. British people are going to be in prison for doing the same by the time this is over, because it looks like Israel is going to have us by the throat. That we're leaving the EU to have one trade deal with Israel and for our country to be transformed into a tax haven as part of a shock and awe strategy. There is not one tax haven on this planet that is a democracy. Jersey isn't a democracy. Do you think Jersey has ever had a general election ever? No. No, it hasn't. Now, I'm showing you the evidence here. I'm showing you the evidence. I'm showing you all the evidence I've shared. I've spent the time and energy going through all the links to share you the information, facts, not fiction, facts, officially recorded facts. We're going to need to renegotiate 759 treaties. We've got no trade deal with America. And again, do we really? What, we're going to leave the EU to be at behest of America and Israel? Presently, the two most horrible nations on this planet in terms of their leadership. We have evidence like this staring us in the face. That the postal vote swung the election. And we're just going to ignore that. That isn't enough to arrest Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings. Of course it isn't. But, you know, him not wearing a mask, well, he deserves to be, you know, abused, have pepper spray, stripped half naked, kicked off the train. Come on, people! This level of ignorance is a crime. It really is a crime when you're prepared to watch your own citizens, fellow citizens, have that happen to them. But you're going to swallow this from people who are going to starve you and leave you with no medicine and leave you with no NHS, no jobs, no fucking nothing. And then meanwhile we've got this, Deagle.com, that comes from where? Okay. If you go to the United Kingdom, I tell you, the population's going to, according to these, the population's going to drop to 15 million. can't find your United Kingdom on here now. It's just about bloody right. Oh, here we go. United Kingdom, 66 million, 2017. Forecast for 2025, 15 million. Who? You look at this site, it is connected to every single British military and government. Okay? You look at it. What gives them the right to say that the Britain's population is going to drop down to 15 million? How have they come up at that figure? What is this? Is this whole site is a conspiracy theory, isn't it? But no, it's reflecting a conspiracy fact, because look what is happening in Britain today with austerity, with the death rates, the closure, shutting down our NHS, and even having a laugh at us, getting everybody to get out and clap for an NHS that has been shut down. Look, everybody in Britain, they'll be showing future generations those pictures, telling them it was the British people clapping because the NHS was finally being shut down. Honestly, that is the level of evil we are dealing with. This is horror. This is horror, right? This is arrest. This is judged guilty before being even proven innocent, right? Okay? That is what it is. The man should be judged innocent until he's proven guilty, unless he tests positive for COVID-19 specifically, and not just a common cold. And yeah, it is about time that people got angry. We have a right to get angry. Anger is not something to be stamped on and shut up. The only thing you need to remember about anger is that you don't lose your rag with it, that you don't go out damaging property and hurting people. As has been happening in Britain over masks, people are being attacked on the street by fellow citizens, taunted, even spat on, because they've got an underlying health condition and they're not wearing a mask, or they fundamentally disagree with wearing a mask when actually they're perfectly healthy and they're not transmitting anything. So, you know, I'm not calling for riots, I'm not calling for mayhem, but I am calling for people to look to Iceland now and to contact the police. We need an organised body in Britain to contact the police. And really, Jeremy Corbyn, step up to it, man, because people voted for you and we were let down and we've been robbed. And it is and you need to step forward and ask the questions and go to the London Met and ask them to arrest this cabal, right? Because as I say, if this is the juxtaposition, if he can be arrested on mere suspicion that he might be a public health risk, these lot can be arrested on suspicion, on grounds of lawful evidence that they rigged the postal vote, that swung the election, and that now they're going to lead Britain out on a criminal no-deal Brexit and put millions of lives at risk, not just a few lives on a train, even just the vague suspicion of it, that man went through that. But this is on evidence, lawful fact, that people are going to die in their, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions? By 2025, will Britain be down to 15 million? Will we even have a democracy? These are important points, and there's the juxtaposition people now. You carry on straining at the gnat, but I tell you now, the camel will kill.